world, we are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us. You are listening to the Anoncast, the official podcast of Anonymous headquarters. Expect us.
Welcome back to the Anoncast, everybody. I'm your host, Alek Heidel. I apologize for the hiatus, but we're back, and today I am with activist hip-hop artist Bonez. Bonez, welcome to the show.
How you doing, Alek? Much love. Thanks for having me.
Hey, not a problem at all. So, recently, the Venus Project held a birthday celebration for Jacques Fresco's 100th birthday down in Fort Myers, Florida. And when I went down there, I had the pleasure to meet Mr. Bonez here. He gave a great performance during the celebration. And he really caught my attention, and I wanted to have him on the show. So I really appreciate your being here today.
Oh, I appreciate that opportunity, brother. I mean, it's nice to be able to speak to the people about how they can empower themselves, you know. It's kind of like what the Venus Project is trying to do, kind of like what, you know, a lot of us are trying to do through our music, through our activism, through our podcasts, blogs, whatever you have. We're trying to put some of that strength back into our numbers, because that's really all we got going for us is strength in numbers, you know.
So to the audience, when I went down there, I met a lot of really great and interesting people from all walks of life, from different organizations, all there to support the Venus Project. And, of course, I managed to grab a bunch of business cards, and so you can anticipate probably a half a dozen interviews that stemmed from the people I met there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I had a great time. So how did you end up hooking up with the Venus Project to give your performance?
It was many interacting steps. I mean, it started with, of course, me just learning about the Venus Project in the first place. My older brother, who's one of those guys who finds all kinds of knowledge interesting on the internet to him, you know, and shares it along. You know, he seeks that kind of information. Passed it along to me about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I was like, what is this Venus Project? He explains to me what it is, and it's just like, I'm like, well, that's what everybody's trying to do, make the world a better place. But it really took hours of listening to the lectures, watching the videos, reading it for myself before I was just like, you know what, this is some real shit. And then taking the next step, contacting these people on social media, because they're really easy to access. They make it clear who they are, the point of contact. They're very resourceful. They're responsive to your questions. I started hooking up with a lot of people on the internet and getting information from them about ways to get involved. Fast forward a little bit, you know, I'm working on the next mixtape, and I'm throwing around ideas for, like, what if I did a song for the Venus Project? Like, I would want it to be something serious. So I started getting that going, and once I put that song together, you know, I shot them a little message saying, hey, you know, I put this out there, and it got their full support, and I was really, you know, I was really blessed with the amount of play that it got, the video and the message got, because of them. You know, this is an organization that runs off of their own funds. They don't have corporate sponsorship. They're like an independent hip hop label in the sense that they do it themselves. They do it all themselves, and their network, their message is growing every day. And for me to be able to contribute to that, in other words, like to make the unofficial rap song for the Venus Project, you know, for lack of better words, was a great honor, and it got their full support. You know, they obviously have my full support. So that really is what brought the conversation about towards me going to celebrate the centennial. And it was just this huge, amazing coincidence that, you know, this amazing man who's been working for 75 plus years on changing the surface of the earth to what they call the second Garden of Eden, he's turning 100. You know, so significant, this centennial celebration, that I got to be a part of, and it was really, really an honor for me to participate in helping them push that message forward, which is missing in so many areas, not just in like hip hop, but in all kinds of magazines, publications, like that kind of futuristic message about the options that people are not aware of. In other words, like energy sources, you know, like memory shape alloys, all kinds of stuff that people are not made aware of. The Venus Project is all about getting this kind of information into the hands of the people so they can make better and more informed decisions about how we ourselves can help shape, you know, our communities step by step towards shaping the entire culture again. And when I finally got down there, you know, they took me in like family, and I was just like, I reciprocated that, and it was a beautiful time. Not just the performance. I mean, the performance was great, but getting to meet these people face to face and really seeing what they're about, like their extensionality, the way they reach out to you, the way they support you, it was a beautiful thing. Like they really walk their talk. So I encourage everybody who's listening to get involved, not just in their communities or in activism, and they to what interests and helps them the most, but also to learn about the Venus Project. Go to their website, thevenusproject.com, find out how it's relevant to you and in what ways, shape, or forms it can help you, whether it's just, taking what might be like a free online course through their lectures, through their videos. You're going to learn something and you're going to be able to apply it to your life somehow, whether it's just through the conversations you have with your loved ones or how you teach if you're a teacher, or how you write if you're a writer, things like that. So that experience for me was a giant learning experience that is an ongoing process. I still am in contact with the people today. I haven't officially announced, but I'm working on a different song and a part 2 video. I put out the video for the performance, but I'm working on a part 2 video that documents my experience there to kind of get people, in the passion seat with me for the experience, not just for the performance. I mean, it was great to participate, but the event was about something so much bigger that I really want people to get in a chance for themselves to see, because nothing I say will really culminate what the Venus Project is proposing better than what they present themselves. So I encourage everybody, check out thevenusproject.com and see for yourself.
Now, before you discovered the Venus Project, were you involved in any other kind of activism?
The furthest I went with activism before the Venus Project was just knowledge of self. In other words, listening to as many people. You know how they say we stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before us. That's pretty much all I had going for me. Listening to people with experience, listening to stories of experience. Like I'm a big fan of George Carlin. His life, his not just his comedy, but like his take on things and like his social awareness about how the political system works, what people need to be thinking about when, they talk about their rights and how rights are so different from each country and how they're all kinds of messed up, to musical information in the form of, for example, like Immortal Technique or Talib Kweli, or, musicians and MCs who are not afraid to rattle the cages and, rock the boat, who are out to more than just rock the boat, to sink it and start over. But listening to the people who knew what they were talking about, who had experience where I did not, was my form of getting informed. But as far as activism goes, my music was not very what you would call activist. I was more so trying to change the way people do hip hop, because I wanted to bring hip hop back to what it used to be in the 70s, 80s, even early 90s, where people were actually talking to each other. They were sharing perspective through the mic, and they actually were talking to the communities rather than pandering to labels who might get them a 6-7 digit salary. So I think my main activism was in the rap game, which was in hindsight obviously very short-sighted, but it felt like the only area in which I could really make a difference. Obviously the Venus Project and things like that, empower you in different ways, but to the degree of changing it within how hip-hop artists and musicians talk to these young people and talk to the communities, that was about the extent of my activism.
One thing I like to emphasize, especially working with Anonymous, people constantly send me emails how they can get involved, and I respond and tell them that it's about doing what you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And hip-hop is what you're comfortable with, and you can send a powerful message through it. So I chose to write. I chose to do a podcast. If someone bakes cookies and they want to go out and they want to bake some activist message cookies, that's good. That's good enough too. Everyone can contribute in their own way, and so that was really just kind of to explain, because I get so many questions about how people can contribute to Anonymous and to activism in general. And really, like I always tell people, it's coming down to what do you feel comfortable with. So, and as far as your experience with hip hop, tell us a little bit about what you have going on. Tell us about your record label.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dark Knight Records is what I work under. I wouldn't say I own it. I would say I run it. In other words, it's my own way of doing music and getting my own stuff out there. I answer to no manager. I have no writers, no producers, nobody telling me what to and what to not say behind the mic. I get to do things my own way, and that's what Dark Knight Records is all about. It's about self-empowerment. It's not just about making music. Like I said, it's about sending a message to these people to get off their asses and get involved, like you say, in any way, shape, or form, what they can do. So Dark Knight Records and hip hop for me was always me trying to put my 2 cents into where like my ancestors did for me. For example, like with my first Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince cassette, he's the DJ, I'm the rapper, to like, the early days of, all 90s hip hop. I mean, I don't want to give any one artist. There's so many artists, 90s hip hop in general, that really touched me in the ways that, they gave me perspective from communities and situations where I had none. And they would tell these stories, and Eazy-E said himself they were street reporters. So that's really what a lot of hip-hop artists did for me, and I wanted to do that with Dark Knight Records. I wanted to be somewhat of a street reporter and talk about what I see, not just within the music business and the rap game, but also on the streets, and do, even a fraction of what, KRS and Pac and Immortal Technique and artists like that do for their communities through the mic, through the music, empower these people. So Dark Knight Records, so far I've got, one album, One Man Army, that I put out about self-empowerment back in 2005. My latest album, Long Dark Night, 2012. It's a really good look at how far off the radar hip hop can go and like still maintain a certain kind of sound. So I try to break the barriers with that. 3 mixtapes. The latest one is Volume 3, called Back to School, and I called it that because it's really an empowering mixtape designed to get people thinking about certain areas that maybe they haven't thought about, and really getting out there and participating and not being apathetic.
Tell us a little bit about the song you wrote for the Venus Project.
Oh, the song I wrote for the Venus Project is called A Better Place. It started with the mixtape version, which I wanted to take to the next level based on some great advice from a really good friend of mine. She said to just go ahead and make an original version in case they do get a chance to hear it. So we went balls deep into it. We went all out. I even decided to make a video. I was like, in case they hear this song, it's got to be backed by some kind of message, not just my lyrics. So I decided to take their video called The Choice Is Ours. At that time, part 1 and part 2 were out. Now the whole 4-part documentary is out. It's hot as fuck. Everybody go watch that, The Choice Is Ours documentary. I took part 1 and 2, and I took video clips from that were relevant to the lyrics that I was writing. In other words, I took Jacques Fresco's message and, in short, made the rap version of it with a little bit of my 2 cents on it, backed by the images, these amazing images and scenes and shots that they put in the documentary. And I made a video for it and just put it out there like that. It wasn't an MP3 audio only first. It was video first, and everybody got to see for themselves what I'm talking about, and actually imagine and see for themselves the visions of these mega machines that he's talking about building that can bring rising sea levels to dry areas and renew the land and stuff like that. I wanted people to see that through the music, not just hear the lyrics. So the song I wrote is called A Better Place, and it really is, like I said, the unofficial rap intro to the Venus Project for people who are not familiar with it. You might get familiar with it through my song and then do the research where, my song kind of opens the door for you, and then you just take on this whole new world. So the song is that. It's hopefully a new window into the world of the Venus Project for people.
So it's a crazy world that we live in. And as a writer, I get exposed to causes around the world that all seem to be vital to those involved, and it can be hard to really pick one of the many causes that's out there in the world that really do mean so much. What out there catches your attention and really hits home for you? Or is there anything out there going on in this world today that really you feel strongly about?
The way people treat each other, because I think that transcends into every aspect of life. The way we treat each other at work, the way we treat each other, at these open mics that I go to, the way we treat each other during combat in war, the way we treat each other in politics, the way we treat each other, at schools, the way we treat each other out in public, when we, politically correct ourselves and censor ourselves, and we don't speak our mind, and we don't get honesty from people. I think human behavior and social studies in that area, I think, is my deepest concern, because I think it affects everything. It affects the way we shop, the way we eat, the way we, communicate with each other. So communicating and coming together, I think, is a big thing for me.
I completely understand what you're saying, and especially when it comes to communication in this day and age, communication is it's a unique animal, because we don't communicate like we used to. You know, we communicate through digital means, and we have less
Yeah.
face-to-face time with people, and it's a scary shift to see the direction we're going. Life seems to be going in a very impersonal direction, you know, and it's obvious when you look at things going on around the world today.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
completely agree with you.
Yeah, it really is easy to be left in the dark. I mean, if you're not actively seeking information, by next year, you're a dinosaur. You're obsolete. I mean, the world really is changing that fast. That's why we have to consider updating ourselves, constantly, because we really could be wrong about everything we think and feel today, and 15 minutes later have a different experience that changes us. People don't change their minds. Like, that's something I learned from the Venus Project, is nobody changes their minds. We have our minds changed for us by events. In other words, you don't believe that man is capable of flying until you see that flying machine. You see it for yourself. Before that, you have opinions and doubts like it'll never happen. But I think getting involved with social media and the way we communicate now, what I mean is, like, 2016 is so important because we have the capability to learn anything. We can like pages like Democracy Now!, like Code Pink, like Humans of New York, like, singleparenthood.org, any organization on social media aiming to empower those people who don't have a voice or be a voice for the voiceless. We can do that now for free until they take net neutrality from us. We got this on lock. We can inform ourselves, empower ourselves, communicate with ourselves because of the capabilities that are achieved through science and technology, not through, no disrespect to anybody, but prayer and hope. Because honestly, if you want to pray for me, that's fine. But, like, nothing works more than really seeking that knowledge and doing it for yourself, and empowering yourself, and that'll really make changes in the world, other than whatever we can do with what limited resources and money we have. I mean, money and resources is nice, but I think knowledge of self and education comes first before anything.
You talk a lot about empowerment and empowering the self.
Yes.
It kind of sounds, from talking to you for this couple minutes, it sounds like really what you mean is taking action.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's a certain amount of action one can and can't take too, because we all have limitations. Some of us are, fathers and mothers of 5, of 3. Some of us, work 2 to 3 jobs. Some of us are in school. Some of us are in debt. So we have limitations. So a lot of times it's easy to get caught up in what we can't do. It's very easy to get caught up in the things that we wish we could change that we can't. So what I try to remind people is to block all that shit out for a little bit and focus on what you can change. And I myself am guilty of not following my rules all the time. I'm a human being, but what I try to stick to and what I try to do, not just in the music, but on social media and through activism, is to remind people that you can make a difference in certain areas. You just got to tackle those first. Like Stephen Covey says, do the big rocks first. If you spend all your time filling your bucket with the sand and the pebbles, you got no space for the big rocks, which is the things that really matter to you. If you do the big rocks first, you throw in the sand and the pebbles and the grain afterwards. Well, you find that by doing the big rocks first, in other words, by tackling the areas that are most relevant and most accessible to you first, you find that other pieces of your life start coming together. And that's powerful. I've lived it. I've seen it through others. And it's something that people often need to hear more often. So that's what I try to do. I try to tell people that you can empower yourself. You can inform yourself. You can make better decisions than you did 24 hours ago, just like that, pretty much.
You mentioned making better decisions.
Yeah.
And the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about better decisions is this 2016 American presidential election we have going on, and how that seems like that is the culmination of, I don't even know how many bad decisions to bring us to where we're at.
It's a mind fuck. Yeah.
It is. What's your take on the election this year? Who you're rooting for? I'm sure I can guess. And your thoughts, Mr. Bonez.
Well, I'm going to just go ahead and be really upfront. I mean, I like Bernie Sanders. I really do. And I accept the possibility. I mean, I'm a realist. If he it's very possible he could get in office and shit doesn't get done. But what I think is really getting him this kind of support that he has now is that he'll listen to people. All right. Now, if we got a president who is going to be in office who will listen to people, maybe we got a shot, because he doesn't. I don't believe, like Jacques Fresco Venus Project says that, politicians can't solve problems, and that's so true. I can't conceive a way Bernie Sanders could be able to answer a question like, how will you increase the agricultural yield without exhausting the soil? Or how will you keep cars from hitting each other? He'll talk to people perhaps that are the experts in the area and say, hey, you know what? We're going to write the rules around what these guys say because they know what the fuck they're talking about. I don't have the answers, but I sat down with them. They showed me the evidence. They, used uniform interpretive language. They, this and that makes sense. So we're going with that, not because it's my opinion, not because, I'm Sanders and I know better, but he might actually listen to some people. Now, if we got a president in office who will actually listen to the experts and fight to put those policies in play that are, dictated by people who arrive at decisions rather than have opinions about what works better, I think we can start to see some serious change. I think there's proof of that in Colorado and Washington with all the income that legalization of marijuana has been generating and where it's going, and the kids who are getting treatment for their 55 to 200 seizures a day through these oils that are illegal everywhere else. So I think that that when we do things like that in an election year where there's so much smoke being blown around to confuse us, to divide us, I think when we break it down to who will listen to us, it gets simpler. Now, I'm not saying that he has the answer, that Bernie Sanders has the answers, but I'm saying that he has proven that he'll listen to people. So that's enough for me to say, and I've said this on Facebook, that come election day, if he's the candidate, I'm going to vote for him. Might not make a shit of difference. It might. But for me to be on that side of history where a person like this who will go out and listen to the people speak from themselves, and I didn't support him, like I can't think of it. I'm comfortable being on the side like I voted for him and didn't shit change. All right, nothing changed. But all people want to do right now is bitch about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not the problem. Donald Trump is a byproduct of many problems that have come before us. He's just now, I guess, what you could call the face of it. So I don't bitch about Donald Trump. He's not the problem. Hillary Clinton, she was a person who has proved time and time again that she will say anything. She's, pointing fingers in the faces of women, asking legitimate questions. She's telling people, why don't you go run for something? She's talking about you. You're the first person to ask me that, and I'd love to talk about it. And then back to the issues, and ignoring her right up front, just going back on. So she'll say anything. So I don't even deal with the freak show. But when it comes to this cat who is willing to listen to people, I'm gonna listen back. I'm gonna hear you out. I'm gonna look at your history, and if your history is consistent, I'm gonna take it a step further and support you a little bit more. If your message is getting stronger based off your consistency, I'm going to be consistent with you. So I like the fact that we got somebody who's listening to us. Like I said, may or may not be the answer. We really need a resource-based economy and get rid of this political process, move beyond politics, poverty, and war. And but that's not happening by 2017. And that's what people need to understand. It's not happening by next year. What might happen by next year, if people get up off their asses and maybe give it a try, is we might have a person in office who is willing to listen to the experts and the people who know what they're talking about. That's why I like Sanders. That's why I guess you could say I support Sanders.
This is a crazy election season, and I've been following presidential politics for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this. Nope. I think the pundits on TV haven't seen anything like this. Nope. And initially, years ago, knowing this election was coming up, I just thought that Hillary was inevitable, and that's just how it was going to be. And so I really didn't give a whole lot of thought for a long time about it because I figured it's better than having the Republicans in office, because I don't even understand what they say when their mouths move anymore. To me, the Republican Party seems to be this conglomeration of bad and outdated ideas that no one really believes anymore. So to me, Hillary was better than any Republican. And I really like Bernie. I love Bernie. However, my biggest fear is that Bernie will get elected, and then once he's in office, nobody will work with him and nothing will get done.
Oh, yeah.
That's my biggest fear.
Absolutely. So, and he has no power in and of himself. That's another thing that people need to understand. He has no power. Like, even if we get President Sanders, we haven't really accomplished shit. Like, that's day one. That's when we really start having opportunities for change. That's not the end of any accomplishment. That's the beginning. I see. If that's what happens, that's going to be the start of us needing to go to work. Now, will it happen? Will it not? I can't deal with that. I don't deal with, just waiting around every 4 years to make a contribution or waiting for, Sanders. Wow, he's finally here. I got a reason to speak out. No, I got to deal with all areas. I got to inform people about the assassination of Berta Cáceres in Honduras. I got to inform people about where the weapons are coming from that are going to Libya. We got a lot of shit to talk about, not just the election, but I think remaining apathetic about this that's going on is very real. That is, very different from these other elections that have happened in the past because of the power of social media and how a person can gain, $30 at a time and raise more money than the other presidents have with all these individual contributions in history. He's set the record for that because the strength in numbers that, again, we have. If we make all these people get together and make small contributions, we do big things. So to get caught up in all the hype, all the smoke and mirrors, the freak show is just really strange. And also to get lost in apathy, like what do you expect to accomplish by not voting? To tell us all you were right at the end of the day, like that, what is that going to get done? So sometimes you got to crawl and swim through the shit to get out of Shawshank. You know what I mean? So on election day, I'm going to be swimming through the shit. I'm going to smell like election shit, and I'm going to crawl out. I'm going to be covered in election shit, but I'm going to be like, you know what? It might be worth a shot.
It's I really don't know what to think of certain aspects of this election, and not to. I'm a conspiracy guy, of course, but not to go off on a conspiracy tangent, because really all conspiracies are connected in general, and it's really a rewriting of history by our intelligence communities who control the narrative is really, the link. But overall, it seems like our presidents are groomed and then they're placed in office.
Oh, yeah.
And the voting is just kind of a charade. The superdelegates and how they work seem to support that. So what I don't really understand is those in control who groom these presidents, what the hell are they doing? Are they doing this? Are they involved with this? I mean, the establishment people who control the flow, and I'm not talking about Illuminati, paranoid conspiracy crap. I mean, the people who really control the flow of people through politics in this country. What is going on? Are they involved in this in any way, shape, or form? And that's one thing that I really don't know. If Trump gets elected, is that just a big fuck you to all of them? I can't wrap my head around it.
Well, one thing I've learned is if you really want to know more about things like that, follow the money. Follow the money, and it'll reveal more and more things. So I think when we find out who's really behind things, like, whether it's Shell or whether it's JP Morgan or, who's really paying for this kind of stuff, I think then you start to see why it is that these people work the way they work, because they have interest. They have people that they need to keep happy, who have them in their fucking pockets. So they answer to somebody. I don't think they're evil people necessarily. I think they're products of their environment. Like, they've been stuck in the system. They don't know any other way. This is their only way to hold power. And people in power usually only want more power. So they're going to do whatever they can to hold on to it, even if it vests only their interest, even if it means, raping the land, raping the people. They're going to stay in power. Who knows what they're really into?
The strange thing is, I really don't recall hearing much about people like the Koch brothers and Sheldon Adelson and the big money people who fund these conservative candidates.
Yeah.
It's such a shit show. I haven't heard anything about their influence in all of this. And those are the guys who really buy candidates.
Some scary shit. It's scary. I mean, in these voting machines can be rigged. People can, screw around with paper ballots. You've seen, like, people wearing, a Clinton or a Trump shirt counting ballots. Like, they're clearly showing a bias there, So a lot of this election shit, of course, it can be rigged. It can make no difference at all. But, those are things that if they happen, they happen. Que será, man. Like,
I gotta say, I have to say, I'm really kind of disappointed in what I have come to understand about the Clintons overall, because when Bill Clinton was in office, I was a whole lot younger. Everyone loves Bill Clinton. I love Bill Clinton. But when you really start looking at them and their rise to power, so to speak, there's a lot of dirt there. There really is. Yeah. And I feel like someone I admired in my youth, I look at now as like I was deceived almost to some degree.
Yeah. I mean, that's people just got to do their research. Nobody should blindly believe anything. Nobody should feel like you should either be Republican or Democrat. That you either this or that. Do your research. There are many gray areas. If you don't trust Sanders at all, you have every reason to. If you don't think voting matters, you have every reason to. History has proven to us time and time again that our vote doesn't fucking count. Carlin said it himself. He sits home on election day and masturbates because the only difference between what he does and what people do on election day is he's going to have something to show for it. Like, really sick and tired. People are sick and tired of the bullshit. And that's what the song Howard Beale on the mixtape was about, is getting mad as hell and saying I'm not going to take it, but taking it a step further and doing your research. Don't just do research on Sanders and Clinton and Trump. Do research on Fresco. Do research on Tesla. Do research on everything that matters and find out how it all ties in. I mean, the more we inform ourselves, the better decisions we can make. The less we have to depend on what the pundits tell us and what the sponsored messages. This message is approved by Clinton. Who cares if it's approved by Clinton? If it's approved by her, chances are it's published and polished and dishonest. So do the research for yourself, people. Don't take my word for it. Don't follow what I follow. Don't support what I support. Do your research, and find out how it matters, why the consistency matters. Follow the money and educate yourselves. That way we can go through this freak show of a 2016 election at least informed to a degree.
You mentioned Republican, Democrat, and that's something that really I spend a lot of time reading and being somewhat aware of the politics that are going on, and I try to think if there is an alternative to a two-party system, and I really don't know that there is an effective one. And it seems unfortunate that we've been locked into, or that politics has degraded to the point where we're left with seemingly the only two parties that there will be.
Yeah.
And both of them are, well, the Republican Party is just a complete mess. It's been broken for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
You can go back and look at modern political history and see where that turn started with Reagan. But my problem that I have with Democrats is that they're weak. They appear to have our best interests at heart, but they never take things far enough or get things really accomplished that we need them to. One thing, kind of on a tangent, but something that really shocked me recently was the approval of the $15 an hour minimum wage in New York and California.
Yeah.
Now, I never heard about a $15 minimum wage before, a year ago. Maybe that was the first time it was kind of brought into our consciousness. And here we are a year later, and it's happened in 2 states. I've never seen any kind of social change that fast, ever.
We're living in. I mean, I don't say this because I'm alive in this time. I'm saying this because it's the truth, and many people can confirm this. We're living in the most important time in human history. We are literally on the brink of reaching that point of no return. Not just with climate change, not just with
but they probably said that at multiple periods in the past.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. But the difference now is how aware we are of it. In other words, we have the opportunity to fact check things like never before. We have the opportunity to look into people's records and check if they've walked their talk like never before. So I think now people are getting more sick of the nonsense faster because of how fast it's really coming at them. People are losing their homes. We got title maxes opening across the street from each other, like 2 title maxes here, another payday loans here. We got people seriously in debt. The system is falling apart fast. And I think it's starting to affect so many people that they can't ignore it anymore. And once they hit that point where their jobs fail them, their political leaders fail them, they start looking for alternatives like the Venus Project, like other movements, like organizations that I've mentioned before, like Code Pink and stuff. But once people get sick, and it unfortunately does take that. It takes people losing their jobs, losing their hopes, losing their families sometimes. We got people. I met people at open mics whose sons have been, shot down by police. Shout out KK Pockets. Much strength to you, brother. And then, people are getting sick of it. We're seeing that we have so many things in common with each other. They're killing our women and children in Honduras, just like they're killing them in Detroit, like they're killing them in Florida. With it's just happening to so many people all over the place, and we're connecting connecting with that pain, that common pain of being oppressed and having little to no options, like no power, no money to change it. And I think that's what's causing people to grow and these grassroots movements to get stronger faster at this particular time in human history.
Yes, it is absolutely amazing at what seems to be over the past, I would just say 2 to 3 years, the level of activism demonstrated by communities that you never would expect it from.
Yeah.
It's really surprising seeing people get involved who had never gotten involved before. Now, usually it happens when people are impacted by a single incident. There's usually something specific that their lives depend on.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's the water in Flint, Michigan, or whether it what went down in Ferguson at the time. People get involved based on need, and it's unfortunate that most of the time people just wait till things are right in their face before they get involved.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I wanted to do this podcast from the get-go, to try to help get people involved. And this was a way for me to empower myself to help other people empower themselves, just like you do through your music.
More proud to you. Awesome. I've learned a lot from you guys too as well. I mean, it's really a full circle thing. Like, as informed people, we can only take so much credit for what we know because we literally stand on the shoulders of other giants that came before us. Like even in a hip hop scene, I can only take so much credit, and writers in general should take note. You can only take so much credit for the stuff you come up with because you're only so clever. I didn't invent the English language. These words rhyme with each other long before I was born, so I'm just the first guy to put them in this order. Anybody could have done it, it's lottery odds, but I'm not special in that sense. I'm not, talented in that sense. I just have a reference of words that rhyme together, and I put out this idea and it made it happen. But I give credit to the people who came before me, and I think that's important too. When we really get empowered, you have to remember that this power is not really something that's coming from you. It's happening through you. Like Bruce Lee says, I am not doing martial arts. Martial arts is happening through me. That's kind of like what we do. We give each other power and we keep it going. I think that's really important. And with the Venus Project, I think a lot of people learn alternative solutions to what's being presented in the mainstream, like what you're reading in the magazines, what's being given to you during, the morning radio show that you make a habit of listening to, alternative solutions, things we haven't thought of before. I think that's the biggest difference now. We have the opportunity to learn things that we didn't know existed and apply that to our way of thinking and say, I can see how that would work. Why aren't we doing that? And I think that's a very beautiful thing. And we can do that through podcasts, through music, through hip hop, through lectures and things like through movies and books. It's beautiful. The self-empowerment thing is just the greatest thing we got going for us.
And you mentioned the Venus Project again, and I want to touch on them for a second.
Sure.
It's rather disheartening in society in general when you talk to people and everyone bitches and complains and nobody has thought through any possible solutions to these problems, or everyone's has some kind of an idea, but really there's nothing large scale that it would encompass everything. And I'm really amazed at Jacques Fresco and his ability to kind of look at problems that we're facing and actually come up with real solutions that are viable.
Oh, yeah.
Because that, I think, is the strength of the Venus Project, is that it's not just an idea. It has viability to it. They need a billionaire is what they need. They need Elon Musk.
A couple, yeah. Few big.
They need him.
Nice.
Yeah, or Mark Zuckerberg, but I'm a little pissed at Zuckerberg because he's still hiding all of his taxes in the Caymans, just
What
like
can you expect? I mean,
just like Google and all these other big companies. So much for a philanthropist.
Yeah, it was worth a shot, I guess, for all the people who tried to get him to donate to this, and that cause. It was nice. I mean, I commend people for giving it a shot, but I mean, what do you expect from people, But yeah, you're right. They do suggest solutions, and to be fair, before the Venus Project, I did watch the Peter Joseph's Zeitgeist movie, and he's done a lot of excellent work. Much credit to him. And the Venus Project and Zeitgeist movement split was a little bit saddening because I thought they could have really helped each other out. No big deal, but yes, solutions are such.
What happened with that? I'm not familiar.
I think there are videos out there by Peter Joseph and also by Fresco that I've watched, they kind of explain it themselves. I can't really comment so much. What I can say is that, you know, they helped each other out, and at some point they, I guess, maybe stopped learning from each other. And, you know, who knows what really happened? I don't know. I can't really speak on that, but I know that they stopped officially working together. But they both generally stand for the same thing. The difference between them now, and I think why a lot of people hold strong to the Venus Project, is because it takes it that step further and presents many, many solutions that are, you know, to much credit to Jacques Fresco. He's put in so much work that many of us have not been able to come up and put together, but it's also based on things that he himself doesn't take credit for. You know, he didn't invent many of these things. He just, you know, knows about them, learned about them, applied them to different things. So he himself says that he stands on the shoulders of other giants that came before him, and, you know, gives much credit to them because he's only a transfer of this. He said himself, if, you know, one day the city gets built, he doesn't want a statue of Fresco built in a city. That'll hold people back. It's constantly got to be evolved. Even his ideas, you know, my ideas have to be, you know, built upon and done better. You know, KRS-One, one of my hip hop teachers, he says himself, don't be like KRS-One. If you like KRS-One, you flunked. You know, you haven't even like passed test one. You got to take it above and beyond what I can do. And I think that's what the Venus Project does, you know, with many bits of information. I think a lot of these organizations are getting things done in certain areas. Absolutely. Like the activists for, you know, people's pro-choice for the abortion rights. You know, that's a really messed up situation that's going on, and a lot of people getting things done there. You know, Greg Joblin put out a book recently called "When We Fight, We Win," and it basically talks about how we get things done as a collective. And I think if enough people know about something like the Venus Project and, you know, talk about it via social media, via conversation, and we start getting at each other like, why aren't we doing this in enough numbers, I think we'll start to see progress in that area. And I think that'll be a beautiful thing for all people.
Yes. Hey, I just noticed that Sasha Lusner is here on Skype, so I shot him a message, see if he'll hop in on our conversation.
That's what's up.
But so let me ask you something.
Sure.
What projects do you have that you're moving forward with? I know you're working on a new song.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It's going to be called The Choice Is Ours, because that's what the documentary is called for the Venus Project. And I figured since they completed their 4-part documentary, and I wrote mine at the time that it was a 2-part, I figured, you know, I'd update mine. So, you know, it hasn't officially been started. We have a track for it ready to go. We're going to see what's the next step. But I think before that's going to come a little bit more promotion of the Back to School mixtape, which is out right now at darknightrecords.com, DARKNIGHT. Records.com. It's a free download. You don't have to, you know, sign up for anything. You don't have to register for anything. You just go to the link that says here, you click it, you download it, you own it, you get empowered. I think it's going to be a lot of information being passed around on that mixtape that's going to help people understand what I'm trying to get at them with. So I think it's going to be a lot of that. I got to go out to these places and talk to these people firsthand and get these ideas in their head about solutions and alternative methods and self-empowerment and, you know, collective unity before we can take it to the next step. Because like the Venus Project, it's not about building cities. It's about a way of thinking, you know, just like hip hop. You know, you got to get these collective minds working in the same basic frequencies, because we can bitch about our differences. Like I know many people who I'm close to, who I love and respect, who are religious and still believe in God. And that's fine. If you want to live that way, if it makes you a better person, if it gives you comfort, that's great. You know, you're not pushing that on me, and we get along just fine. We can talk about it. We can disagree. I think bigger than our disagreements are the things that we can, you know, come together on, the things that we can agree on. We need clean air. We need clean water. We need, you know, a police force that's looking out for us. We need a government that's working for the people. These are the things we need. You know, whether you're in Libya, whether you're in Cochabamba, whether you're in the United States, these are the things that all people need. You know, and I think once we start seeing solutions to these problems, how to clean up our water, not just here in the United States and Flint, you know, they really need our help. But we got people in other parts of the world who can't get clean water and haven't had access to clean water for weeks, months, years. So I think once we start seeing what we have in common, these problems that we have in common, we'll really start to see things turning around very fast.
You know, you've mentioned throughout this podcast people praying for you and people believing in God, and I get from your statements that you are not a religious man.
No, but I do see a value in a lot of it, and I want people to understand that right off the bat. I have There are spiritual and religious songs that have given me strength. There are passages in Bibles that I can relate to. But yeah,
Well, it seems I ask because it seems as though when you look at the large scale picture, religion plays a huge part in the problems that we're facing today. It plays its part in the Middle East. It plays a huge role here in America. All of the right, all of the anti-abortion stuff, all of the pro-war on drugs propaganda, that all stems from the religious right. And so religion, it seems like it's a very divisive thing that we really don't need anymore.
it really has become that. I mean, it is obsolete. I hate, I don't like hurting people's feelings who I love and respect when they hear me say these things, but it really doesn't serve us in areas that we need. Like, why don't churches pay tax? Why are these buildings that are so huge and so able to take on, lots of people closed to the public, and they're not helping out homeless? It's like they don't walk their talk. Christians are supposed to open their doors for people and taking the sick. You don't see a Christian. They talk their talk, but that's about it. A lot of religious aspects are very detrimental as well. Like, they are divisive. They are ways for us to look at each other very differently and demonize each other. And I think it can be used as a weapon. And the fact that we teach our kids this kind of stuff and don't let them make up their minds for themselves, I think sets them back, because then they got to find out not only that there are other religions and other gods that are different from the one that they were taught, but that there's the fact that, you're going to have friends that believe in different things than you, and you're going to meet people who are great, who believe different things than you, and you're going to have this common difference. You're going to have this thing that, is very, very, easy to fight over, and you get along just fine with this person. And because somebody put a different idea in your head than, was put in yours as a child, you're going to have this ground that you can't find in common. And I think that holds us back as a people. But like I said, there is value in a lot of what they teach, because what all religions and Bibles that I have looked into have in common is, do kind for your brother, forgiveness, and common things like that don't stem from religion. They don't exist in and of because of religion. They come from long human cultures. Lots of different cultures that have different values all talk about sharing and, brotherhood and things like that. So we don't need religion for brotherhood. We don't need religion to tell us to do the right thing. We need to do the right thing because it's the right thing. So I think it's not a necessary step for us to take. But like I said, if it gives people comfort in great times, who am I to say, you praying because your son got taken from you at 25 and it's giving you comfort is a bad thing. I don't see that as a bad thing, because, that person could just as easily turn to drugs versus.
Well,
So.
my take on religion in general is that it's all just myth that people have turned into what they believe is real. And I believe that they've been fed this from people that they trust. And that's fine in and of itself. But when you take your myths and apply it in the ballot box, that to me is unacceptable.
Right.
Myth, as it applies to your vote, and it affects individuals on issues like abortion,
Yes.
That's just unacceptable. And I believe there comes a time when you really need to shed childish beliefs. And then as soon as you do, you're criticized. Look at all the great atheists throughout history. They've all been criticized.
It's all there, and they all had that in common, that they were all the black sheep. They were the minority. They didn't have strength in numbers, so it was easy to back down and say, you know what, I'm going counterculture. I better, not step on any toes. I'm sure it was a lot. Can you imagine how many people didn't come to the forefront, didn't go all the way, and kind of like got scared or bullied out of their movement? And we must have lost so much. All the valuable information that has been burned, all the libraries that have been lost over wars and religious hatred. I mean, it goes too far. It's so ridiculous. But I mean, at the core, it really is something that does need to stay out of things like abortion. Like, who the fuck are these people who their same Bible says a woman shouldn't teach, you're telling you're telling women what to do with their bodies. It's completely ridiculous. I mean, they don't understand what goes through a person's mind. I saw this one documentary. It was called Science. I think Science versus God or something like that. It was a short little 30-minute documentary that the man who gave it to me, I love and respect him, and I watched it out of respect for him. But this guy went around asking these people about abortion. He asked them this question, and he phrased it very, very specifically. He says, "Finish this sentence. It is okay to have an abortion when," and he sticks the microphone in their face. And to me, that was ridiculous because he was getting at these young cats who didn't have the intellect to form a reasonable argument or discussion. They felt like they had to answer the question, but it's so close ended because that question assumes that women get abortions because it's okay. Now, I'm not a woman, and I can't say anything about why women get abortions, so I can't speak on that. But I know for damn sure they don't do it because they're like, you know what? It's okay. It's cool. I'm gonna go get an abortion. It's okay. They don't do it because it's okay. And that question, I think, was really, really cowardly. Like, these people are telling women, not just telling them what to do with their bodies, but bullying them into thinking that they're doing something horrible when they make this decision that affected their life that they should get to choose over. Who's to say that this happening to somebody that you care about might not make you change your mind? If this were to happen to some of these people who are anti-choice, they might think differently of it. If they think for a step back for a second and they realize they're the ones that are pro-war and they're perfectly happy sending our 18-year-old kids to die, they want to protect our fetus. And then once it's born, they don't want to give us our welfare, our assistance. And then once you reach military age, you're exactly what they need. You're the best thing they've been looking for. Once you hit that military age, you are exactly what we've been looking for. We can give you free this, free that. We'll take care of you. And a lot of these veterans are getting fucked over. These veterans aren't getting treated right. And whether a person is pro or anti the war in Iraq, no matter how you feel about the United States having occupation in just about every country on this planet, I think we can all agree that these veterans who signed up deserve to be taken care of. I think we can all agree that these people who were promised health care and promised jobs and promised, their families that will be taken care of should at least get that. That's the bigger issue.
I completely agree. And it just seems as though that religious right mentality ties into this overarching theme of America, Mom, and Apple Pie.
Yeah.
And we fight the good wars, and we're always the good guy, and there has to be this ultra evil bad guy. Who's the bad guy now? ISIS is the bad guy this week.
Yeah, we don't like to talk about it.
Right, and if you study ISIS, you'll know that we basically support the FSA, and the FSA is allied with al-Nusra, who is allied with ISIS. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that we are covertly still funding ISIS. When we're funding our own bad guy so we can continue this war. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I hate to say it, but that's what I spend a lot of my time on, is researching the Middle East and history and these connections. Seemingly, if you look back at world history, the CIA has their hands in everything. Like, nothing goes on in this world that the CIA isn't connected to in one way, shape, or form. Or I should just say our intelligence communities as a whole. They create the narrative, and then that narrative goes on to be history. And it's all fake. It's all fake.
And that's what people are uncomfortable talking about. Well, we're perfectly comfortable talking about ISIS and how we got to stop ISIS, and ISIS is doing this and that. But we're not comfortable with taking the conversation a step further and talking about what created the vacuum in Iraq that allowed, for example, groups like ISIS to take power. We don't like to talk about where the weapons come from. We don't like to talk about who's paying for this stuff. There's a lot of things that people won't want to get their hands dirty with. That information might just change too much. It might make them feel like, what? Oh shit, I had a hand in this. I actually kind of can say I played a part in this by saying I support what we did here in these drone attacks and things like that. I think people are scared to find out how deep the rabbit hole really goes because it's gonna hit really close to home, and that's what people are uncomfortable talking about. And whether people are for or against the war, like I said, I think the main thing we can agree on is to solve our problems by killing each other. At the very least, we fucked up big. to take it further, we haven't explored all options, and that's the bigger issue with war is what else can we do besides bomb the shit out of each other's countries and create these lands that are uninhabitable that cause refugees to leave home. They're not leaving because they're bored. They're not hitting the next country over because they want to see what the tourism is all about. They're going because they have no choice. They're crossing like 6,000 miles of land or water. They're desperate for a life that has at least one meal a day, or they can put two shoes on their feet. They're not here to take over your resources. They're not here to take away America. People talk about make America great again, but they don't want to talk about specifics. They want to talk about what year America was great again. Well, I can guess in that year you're talking about, there might have been, the civil rights movement going on. Before that, there might have been slavery. Like what are people talking about? People are afraid to get specific and really get into the conversation. They want to use slogans. They want to use catchphrases like make America great again, or ISIS is ruining this, or the Mexicans are responsible for that. You can get only so far with catchphrases and slogans, and they're really nice to put on Facebook memes and things like that. But you got to take the conversation a step further with people and really ask them the questions that matter. Where are these weapons coming from? Who's paying for this? Things like that. And that's what we don't like to do.
You mentioned the refugee crisis, and to me, this has been an absolutely incredible thing to observe from a distance. It has really kind of shown the world who we really are, in as far as our reactions to the refugees. I mean, this is a true humanitarian aid situation, and it seems as though the first thought that came to mind was, oh my God, we're letting in terrorists. And then, recently you hear about in certain countries, refugees committing sexual assaults, and then you can kind of almost smell the propaganda around the articles like that.
Oh, yeah.
Not that there isn't some truth, because propaganda always has a shred of truth mixed with the lies. But it really has shown who is able to fulfill their word and as a human being and help these people, and who couldn't fulfill that responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these people's lives are happening here and now. That's what we got to understand. As the average person listening to this broadcast, maybe eaten or just finished a meal, there are people who haven't eaten in days. They're wondering where the next meal is coming from. That stuff is happening here and now. We have to not depress ourselves with it, but we have to keep that in mind. Like, these people, no matter where they go, it's not going to be enough where they end up, because they need to be helped where they are. They need help in their homelands. They need these places rebuilt, taken care of. No country can take in the amount of refugees that can fix the crisis. It's not happening. It's not happening. We don't have the resources. We definitely don't have the money for it. These people need to be helped where they are. They need their homes rebuilt. They need their infrastructure rebuilt. They need occupation the fuck out of their country. They need to be allowed to govern themselves and make decisions based on what suits them, not what suits us way over here. It's crazy that we're living in a world where of so few make so many decisions for so many of us, and it's like we're left to pick up the scraps that are left over. We either choose to stay in this and live in a war zone and try to raise a family here where kids are afraid to go to school because they might get shot at, or go somewhere where you might face deportation or imprisonment. It's a lose-lose situation for so many people, not just in the United States, but worldwide. And it's a big, big problem that politics doesn't really have a solution for it, that bitching on Facebook doesn't have a solution for. We need to take a step further and see what the alternatives are to these very real problems, like how can we regenerate or re-nourish the soil in these parts that are ocean dead zones, land dead zones. What can we do to clean up oil and plastic from our environment? There's stuff like that can be done that we just don't know about, that can help with that refugee crisis, because if these people have their homes cleaned up, rebuilt, and they have an infrastructure that works for them, they don't need to be refugees. They don't need to get assistance from anywhere else. There are no black problems, white problems, women's problems. There are human problems, and we're hurting all over. And I think once we get that through our heads, that this is going on close to home, we might actually get up off our asses and do something about it. The refugees need our help, and nobody has the amount of money that it takes. I wish I could make donations in 6-figure amounts. I can't do that. Many people can't do that. I wish I had, buildings that I could fill with people, but I can't do that. Most people can't do that. What we have to do is get together as one people, like Jacques says, Jacques Fresco, the Venus Project says, declare all the Earth's resources as the common heritage of all the Earth's people and move from there. Do that global survey that they're talking about to see what the parameters are of which we can start fixing. What can we do with this part of the land? Where are there arable lands? Where do we need the hospitals? Where do we need these? And start helping these people where they live, because otherwise they're going to keep fleeing these war zones. They're going to keep looking for help. What option do they have? And when they come to us, what do? We lock them up. We separate the parents and their kids. We're destroying homes. There are effects and ripples to the wars and the bombs that we haven't even seen yet, that are still having an effect that we haven't seen yet. So I think if we don't do something about it soon, we really are going to reach that point of no return. It's so much bigger than the United States and any one nation.
Well, my friend, we're going to wrap this up tonight. And is there anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
DarkKnightRecords.com. If you want to know what's the latest and most up to date with your boy Bonez, whether it's my activism, my music, go to DarkKnightRecords.com. DarkNight records.com. That one scroll on the homepage will get you to all the social media links, whatever you prefer: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that. Check out the venusproject.com, VENUS project.com. Learn about them, learn about how you can get involved with organizations in your community. Listen to Democracy Now!, subscribe to all kinds of independent media outlets that'll give you the truth without corporate sponsorship. So they're speaking from the streets, they're speaking from these people's voice. So get involved. Pay attention to the real issues, people, and realize you can be a stronger, more empowered version of yourself by tomorrow, by next year, and get that in your heads, and let's make this world a better place.
All right. So before I leave you guys for the day, I'm going to play a couple songs from Bonez, and that'll be it for today. Till next week, I'm Alek Heidel. I'll see you then.
Peace and love, world.
What if all the money in the world suddenly disappeared? As long as we had arable land, factories, technical personnel, and other resources existed, we could build anything we wanted to build and fulfill most of our needs.
Money isn't what you want, and I'll prove it too. You really only want the things money do for you. You can't eat it, drink it, it don't keep you warm. You can't stack it around, you can build a decent home. We don't need reform from any politicians who make plans illegal for you to rot in prison. The thing about the system that you got to see is that it's no longer relevant, it's obsolete. We need a brand new vision for the way that we live. Gotta change the world before our babies get big, so they'll feel 120 degrees in the summer. We can put the guns down and scream peace if you wanna. I'm tired of living paycheck to paycheck. This madhouse I try, but I can't escape it. I don't blame anybody, it's the same disease. We're all plagued by money and insane with greed. At least we're trained to be. It's indoctrination. The elite bent on worldwide domination. We shouldn't have to go to war and die for our nation, while the only benefits go to corporations. We can do much better, you can read about it. Resource-based economy, the Venus Project. Perpetual death, where's the belief in logic? I dream about shouting peace, I'm out there. It's gonna bring you all with me if I ever get there. You can have abundance and access to healthcare. No more slave wages, it's got to go. Trying to feed our kids, almost impossible. We all want the same things, we just trying to live. You don't want the whole pie, just a slice of it. So I'ma strike a match and get right, you dig? And I wish that you all could feel as nice as this. Ask yourself, do you really want war? Ask yourself, could we really end poverty? Ask yourself, is it worth looking into? For the stress and hard times you've been through. Ask yourself, do you really want war? Ask yourself, could we really end poverty? Ask yourself, is it worth looking into? A bright new future, no borders come into. And I'm not your enemy, just hear me out and let's have conversation, no screaming and shouting. Shout, shout. Let's have conversation, no screaming and shouting. Man, I'm not your enemy, just hear me out and let's have conversation, no screaming and shouting. Shout, shout. Let's have conversation, no screaming and shouting. I don't wanna tell you how to live, make up your own damn mind. You don't like how I feel, cool, homie, that's fine. We don't gotta kill each other over it though. Do you, I do me, we move forward and roll. That's what grown folk do, there is no utopia. We stop improving, the show is over. So you got an idea, man, I'm glad to listen. A whole lot more unity, that's what's missing. Ask yourself, do you really want war? Ask yourself, could we really end poverty? Ask yourself, is it worth looking into? For the stress and hard times you've been through. Ask yourself, do you really want war? Ask yourself, could we really end poverty? Ask yourself, is it worth looking into? A bright new future, no borders come into. Ask yourself, do you really want war? Ask yourself, could we really end poverty? Ask yourself, is it worth looking into? For the stress and hard times you've been through. Ask yourself, do you really want war? Ask yourself, could we really end poverty? Ask yourself, is it worth looking into? A bright new future, no borders come into. And I'm not your enemy, just hear me out and let's have conversation, no screaming and shouting. Shout, shout. Let's have conversation, no screaming and shouting. Man, I'm not your enemy, just hear me out and let's have conversation, no screaming and shouting. Shout, shout. Let's have conversation, no screaming and shouting.
And that's what it's about. We have a tough job ahead, all of us. If you wish to live in a world without war, poverty, unemployment, hunger, human suffering, you have to talk to other people. If you do nothing, I can assure you nothing will happen.
I'ma cast a spell, beautiful and dark, bad as hell. Scream if you wanna get loud and yell. Call a priest if you're scared, go grab your cell. Yo, hit the lights, I'ma cast a spell, beautiful and dark, bad as hell. Scream if you wanna get loud and yell. Call a priest if you're scared, go grab your cell.
Oh Father, help me, say a prayer, say one for the kids who they get scared. We hope and pray you show a way to make the voices go away. They just go on and on and on and on and on with that mean man's mean song, all bad dream long.
A world you'll never understand, and you always fear what you don't understand.
It's a full moon out tonight, candles burning, the circle turn down the lights. Casting spells that distort reality, so don't confuse this for insanity. I throw a bunch of words out in all directions, a little fair warning just for y'all's protection. Parental advisories ever to silence me futile, the instrumentals alive in me. I don't choose the words, they choose me to control the mental picture you see. I'm unpredictable like Bruce Lee, no style, no origin, reign supreme. I can forge your flow only twice as hot at any venue with a PA and a mic to rock. Doing this to the death like I tie the knot. Boogeyman's coming, find a hottest spot. I want all four walls painted black. Crazy flows, I demonstrated that. He's out of his mind, maybe that. A maniac, still conversate with yaks. Still say a lot of things that you might dislike. One look and you might think the violent type. You'll forget that, I don't wanna die tonight. Just get high and write shit dynamite. Spit cyanide, just let it flow. Bump loud like the World Magnetic Show. Taking y'all to school, giving lessons, yo. These stepping stones towards progressive growth. Words penetrate the deepest souls and raise eyebrows in all these decent folks. Bowls get packed in my piece we roast. Shout out to Stop for Curtis E and O's. Yo, hit the lights, I'ma cast a spell. Beautiful and dark, bad as hell. Scream if you wanna get loud and yell. Call a priest if you're scared, go grab your cell. Yo, hit the lights, I'ma cast a spell. Beautiful and dark, bad as hell. Scream if you wanna get loud and yell. Call a priest if you're scared, go grab your cell.
Oh Father, help me, say a prayer, say one for the kids who they get scared. We hope and pray you show a way to make the voices go away. They just go on and on and on and on and on with that mean man's mean song, all bad dream long.
This is a world you'll never understand, and you always fear what you don't understand.
I can't believe he just said what he said. Cover your ears, kids, we're exiting left. I wonder what that tattoo says on his neck. I won't let him corrupt the eggs in my nest, cause he speaks so strange and so fast. And I bet not a day can go past that he don't stay blazing the grass. Shit talk is pain in my ass. Enhance your calm and slow up. And how about y'all grow some nuts? Your panties all in a bunch, needing alcohol in your cups. I write for the listeners, keeping an open mind. Our souls collide. I'ma pick your brain open like it ain't nothing and stroll inside. Waltzing around like I run the place. Balls in your mouth cause you wanna taste. It's dark and it's loud, beats bump and shake. Harden the sound, turn up the bass. Pass me the mic cause now it's time to send chills like ice going down your spine. A verse so nice that I'm proud to rhyme. Rehearse what I write like 1,000 times to lyrically infect you with the sickness we inject. Me be politically correct, you must be digging me a wreck. Pen your dreams and then watch them come to life, like a home with your firstborn son and wife. Pick up some rubber for the love tonight and get the big ones fucking right. I'ma cast a spell, beautiful and dark, bad as hell. Scream if you wanna get loud and yell. Call a priest if you're scared, go grab yourself. Yo, hit the lights, I'ma cast a spell, beautiful and dark, bad as hell. Scream if you wanna get loud and yell. Call a priest if you're scared. scared, go grab yourself.
Oh Father help me, say a prayer, say one for the kids too, they get scared. We hope and pray you show